Hello and welcome to Drive-In Double Feature Podcast. I'm Nathan.
I'm Ryan.
And this is the podcast where we talk about 2 movies a week every Tuesday and Thursday. And on this Tuesday's episode, we're talking about Runaway Train from 1985. But before we get into it, I want to talk to you about our Patreon. Over on patreon.com/driveindoublefeaturpodcast, we have a bunch of mini episodes where we just kind of have conversations or play fun games over there. Just for $5 a month, you can get that content. You'll help support the show. But getting into this week's movie, Runaway Train, directed by Andrei Konchalovsky. I hope I'm saying your name correctly. Unless, Ryan, you have a good pronunciation for me.
Oh, well, I thought we were talking about that Soul Asylum song, Runaway Train, where it was finding all those lost kids.
Oh, yes. So you listen to a song for a movie podcast?
Well, I thought it was weird, so I listened to it for 2 hours just on repeat.
That's a good way to hate a song. but no, we're talking about the Runaway Train, the Cannon movie. We're back at Cannon.
We are.
It's been a little long. It's been a little bit. There was a string there where we did a lot of Cannon movies, and we kind of took a break. But I'm happy to be back.
Yeah, definitely.
But
it's probably the most non-canon movie out of all the other non-canon movies.
So yeah, I kind of get why it was made by Cannon, but it's probably like it's a much better movie than most of their stuff. I mean, this is an Academy Award nominated movie, written by Akira Kurosawa, which I didn't know until I turned on the movie and I saw based on a screenplay by Akira Kurosawa. I was like, oh, what's it a remake of? No, he actually wrote this movie and they kind of, they worked on it. And you can see it. It has a lot of his like tropes and like characters in it. It makes sense.
Did you see who he wanted in these? So the 2 main actors in this one is John Voight and Eric Roberts. And I kind of spoiled it already, but did you hear who he wanted as the replacements for these 2 characters?
No, I don't know.
He wanted Henry Fonda and Peter Falk.
That is a complete opposite of what I would think. Henry Fonda is an interesting pick. Peter Falk would be actually really cool, but I just love Peter Falk, so
he'd want Peter Falk as the Manny character.
That makes sense. But no, instead we get John Voight and Eric Roberts, and Eric Roberts seems like a canon pick, but not really at this time. I feel like Eric Roberts was very much an up-and-comer, and he would get nominated for this, and so would John Voight for Best Supporting Best Actor. And John Voight won the Golden Globe for Best Actor for this movie, which is so surprising to me. Because, I mean, this is a good movie, but it's a genre film. It's an action film. But
he gives a fantastic performance. He's really great in it, I thought.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think everybody does really good in this movie. No, I mean, Runaway Train is like just a thriller action movie, and once it gets going, it doesn't stop. It's one of those movies where it just keeps rolling like a fast train. Wow, like a runaway train even.
Oh, I didn't even realize that.
Yeah, wow. Kind of crazy. But no, so what it is Eric Roberts and John Voight are both prisoners, and it's kind of a prison escape type film. And John Voight is some kind of really loved prisoner by everybody in the prison who's in solitary, and he finally gets out of solitary. I do think it's weird that everybody likes this guy because he's kind of an asshole.
Yeah, well, because I get it, because kind of like he makes it no secret that he's against the warden and he doesn't like any authority type of figures. So he's very much like the guy that, the warden tells him to do stuff, or when he's like, piss off or whatever, he doesn't take any crap from anybody. And that's why everybody loves him so much, because, he's kind of standing up to the big guy type of thing. And now, outside of that, though, he's a completely homicidal maniac, but
yeah, which we learn a bit more after everything.
But he's got a lot of emotions that he's really dealing with, and he's been kind of fighting with this whole thing. Like, he's kind of like this animal where he's like in a cage the whole thing, and like when he does get on the outside, he I think he kind of soon realizes that as soon as he gets out of prison that, he really doesn't have a place on the outside, or
Mm-hmm.
it's, he really doesn't know what to even think about being outside of the prison.
Yeah, yeah, and it doesn't help that they're in snowy Alaska. This is a cold movie. And I mean, I love this aesthetic. It's just really snowy and dense, and just looks not fun to be in. So I'm sure escaping prison just to be, well, Eric Roberts is shoeless in the snow even. So just being out in that is probably like, oh wow, this does not feel like freedom even slightly.
Oh, we hear about his shoes like 100 times before he finally gets shoes. Manny, I need shoes, Manny.
Well, it kind of sounded like you channeled Forrest Gump, but
That's
Eric Roberts
he
is what he's
sounds like
doing.
that. He literally sounds like that.
Do you think Tom Hanks ripped off of Eric Roberts?
I think so. He's like, Manny, I need shoes, Manny.
Yeah. So Eric Roberts in this, I think it's one of those performances where like he just, if he did it a little bit more, like overacted, he would be so annoying. But I really love this character and his performance. He does it so well, which is so weird to say about Eric Roberts. I love Eric Roberts, don't get me wrong, but that man puts in like 10 roles a year, maybe even more.
Hardest working man in show business, one of, because we were looking beforehand, and the man has over 700 acting credits. And it's just insane. Like the man, if you look at his IMDb, like each movie he pumps out a year, like you said, it's like 10 movies a year. And the urban legend is that once he got nominated for this Oscar, he was offered a bunch of roles, and his he turned down a bunch of like really prolific type of roles because his agent's like, oh, you don't want to take that. It's going to screw up your Oscar chances. And after he lost, the urban myth is that, or legend is that Eric Roberts said, I'm not going to say no to anything. And if you look at his IMDb, it shows like as soon as like you start hitting like the late 80s, 90s, I mean, this guy goes like full throttle.
Boom, boom, like pumping him out. And it's crazy because he's such a notable name. Like he could be in movies like The Dark Knight, but be in other stuff like Oops, I'm a Talking Cat, like he's one of those actors that no matter what roles he picks, he will find work. There's some people a choice will ruin their career. He is not one of those people.
I know, he pops up in the most, like, he'll, for every straight to DVD movie he does like one like really prolific type of role. It's like he does a bunch of like low quality movies, and then he's like the main antagonist in The Expendables, which has like all like this huge cast of characters in it.
Yeah, no, he's such an interesting actor, and I mean, I think here it even shows like he has chops. He's not someone to make fun of as like as far as like acting ability, because I really like this character. He ended up being really likable, and when you get later into the movie, the dynamic between him and Jon Voight, Eric Roberts looked up to Jon Voight, and then he sees Jon Voight as like his hero is actually not what he thought he was. And it just becomes almost devastating in a way. It's really sad.
Yeah, especially because it gets to the point where they start coming to blows, and they're about to kill each other, and Eric Roberts kind of gets the upper hand on him, and then Jon Voight like immediately, you think like he's gonna, he's always had this like, oh, I don't care if I die, I'm just gonna fight, and then he becomes real vulnerable and kind of like backs down and doesn't really, he's like, his fear starts showing that he really doesn't want to. He's afraid. He's just as afraid as everybody else is.
Exactly. Yeah. But I guess we should get into like what the set piece of this movie, what the big deal is with this movie. And I mean, it's the title, Runaway Train. So they do escape prison, Jon Voight and Eric Roberts. Eric Roberts kind of just tags along. I can't believe Jon Voight's like, whatever, come along. They become a duo, and then they hijack a train, and it's the brakes break down and everything, and it's just speeding up and with no way to slow down.
Well, they don't technically hijack it. They stow away on the train at
That's true.
first. And
That's
then
true.
and then what happens is the engineer has a heart attack on the train,
Hmm.
collapses, and the train goes full throttle because he hits the throttle before he dies.
Yeah. Yeah. And this movie has this whole subplot about the people that actually run the train because I guess they built like this crazy, like for the time, big deal train system all controlled through a computer that can stop the trains and everything. But it ends up not working out for them at all.
Did you realize this movie has another common theme that we've talked about in other movies?
What's that?
People that are taking a crap and then they just get up and don't wipe or wash their hands
Oh my
afterwards.
God, I did
And
not.
the
I
guy that
should
was
have noticed.
the guy that's controlling the train, like one of the other workers like runs in there like, hey man, we need your help, come out. And then he just opens up the stall door, just pulls up his
That's
pants
right. Yeah.
and comes out, doesn't wash his hands or anything, just like,
Yeah. Straight off the taking like a dump and he's like, all
yeah.
right, I'm good.
Yeah,
It-
there's a lot of piss and crap in this movie because
uh-huh.
they go through the sewer. That's how they
Yes.
escape. Which that was a really cool sequence. They went to the sewer and then they fall out of this like waterfall into the icy river. But
Yeah.
it's full of feces and things like
Hmm.
that. And uh, and Eric Roberts is like, oh man, I was like, I just put my hand through crap. He's like, yeah, it'll wash off. And then he's like, oh, I'm going to throw up. I want to be sick. And he's like, yeah, getting sick is the best. Like, if you're going to get sick, here's the best place to do it.
Yeah. Doesn't he say like, oh, you've never been in a sewer before? Like to him?
Yeah.
Like, all right. But no, I think that's a good sequence. And just the whole journey there. So like all the poop and pee stuff, is that Kurosawa? Does he do a lot of poop jokes? I thought that was like I didn't know that was him. But
Yeah. Yeah. You don't remember the famous fart gag from Seven Samurai?
oh yeah, that was my favorite part. The laugh riot of a movie. Uh,
Yeah.
but no, I I think that's so interesting though, thinking about that he wrote this script and nobody in America would finance it. Nowadays, like if he existed, if he was still alive, you you get anything from him and they'd be like, yeah, no, we're making it. This is
Uh,
definitely like there was a time where he was like, no, we will not make this stuff.
well, I mean, I think it was maybe more of like, I guess like Hollywood back then didn't really see a lot of benefit to a lot of foreign directors.
Hmm.
I think very few times like Kurosawa actually directed like English speaking actors. Like he made like one movie with like Richard Gere, I think,
Yeah, yeah,
but he didn't make any American features. And I think that's kind of like, oh well, they don't really understand the style or whatever, maybe. I don't know.
yeah.
But that's he was like the director in Japan. We've talked about it before where he's kind of like he can do whatever he want. Like Honda, he's got to make whatever the Toho tells him to make. But Kurosawa is like, no, you can make whatever you want, please.
Yes, yeah, you can do whatever. Poor Honda. Oh man. But we
Uh,
don't but this has nothing to do with Japanese cinema because
no,
it is an American movie made by Andrei Konchalovsky, which I know oh sorry, who is a Russian director. But I
yeah.
know that people do like his work. He made movies like Tango and Cash and he's made a lot of different movies. He tops a lot of genres.
So one thing we haven't really talked about with Canon, and
Yeah.
I think that's like a other side of the coin, is that they did make a lot of movies that people kind of made fun of, or they just saw it as like low quality B movies or whatever you want to call it. But there
Mhm.
is a complete other side of the coin that they did because there are a lot of directors that they worked with that were kind of shunned from Hollywood or like they were are deemed like too difficult to work with. Like one very famous example is John Cassavetes. He made at least I think two Canon movies, I think, but
Yeah.
um, at the time when like Hollywood producers were like he's too difficult to work with, like he doesn't want final, like he always wants final cut, that type of thing, and John Cassavetes actually spoke very highly of Canon, like like kind of gave him carte blanche. There's another one, I can't remember yet, another really famous Italian director.
Oh, really?
Um,
The one I'm thinking of is Jean-Luc Godard. They gave him a
that's right.
chance, and he made King Lear, which of course upset them because it isn't what they thought it would be. But they gave Godard a chance.
But that's kind of what they were doing though. Like they basically just give these people a blank check. They're like, hey, we're not going to give you a bunch of money, but hey, we'll let you do whatever you want type of thing. Yeah. And the other one he did was Franco Zeffirelli. And he was and so if you actually go back and I also rewatched this part for the Canon documentary too.
Yeah, cool.
Because they talk about Runaway Train as well. And I was just some positive examples like Franco Zeffirelli, like he had his opportunity and he even said like that they were the best producers I've ever worked with.
Hey, that's cool. Yeah, I think both the dudes that ran Canon, they understood like who they were getting. Like, they had their actors to pay and make the Death Wish movies and stuff like that. But they knew when they got like an art director, and it's like, okay, well, let's let them make something that they want to do. I mean, sometimes it didn't pan out, but it seemed like they like to take chances with just giving people a chance. And I think that's awesome. I mean, it worked for them, especially, well, maybe not money-wise, because Runaway Train did not make its budget back in the theater. But I do think it got them Oscar love, and it is just a genuinely good movie. I still think this movie holds up.
I personally think this movie is a forgotten classic.
Yeah.
And I think, and the biggest negative thing that a lot of people said on this documentary is that if any other studio had put their name on this besides Canon, it would have been well known and it would have gotten more recognition.
And I can
And
see that.
because I mean, at the time, I mean, there's like this movie predates a lot of those like super action heavy type of movies like Die Hard and things like that, where it's so I think this movie, it could have been it should be a lot bigger than what it is, in my opinion.
No, I totally agree because it just works on a lot of levels. Like it's so action heavy, and like I've seen a lot of action movies that just get really dull, but this is almost like an early version of Speed in a way where it's just, I don't know, there's just something always happening in this movie. Like they solve one dilemma and then another one instantly pops up, and it's like there's an amazing moment that really got me was there's a part in the tunnel and there's a bridge, and they keep talking about it in the main office. Like if they go over 50 miles per hour, this bridge is going to collapse. And, Eric Roberts and John Voight are trying their hardest to figure out how to slow down at this point. And they do eventually go over the bridge. And I seriously was watching this movie and I was like, is this bridge going to collapse? Like, I was genuinely like, holy crap. Like, planks are falling and stuff. Of course it didn't crash, but me who's seen like so many movies, it genuinely made me like, I don't know, a little like, oh my God, this actually could end here.
Oh yeah. I mean, you're on the edge of your seat the whole time, but this is like my second time watching this movie and it's just as exciting as the first viewing, if not more.
Yeah.
And one of my favorite moments too is the warden of the jail. So once they break out of the jail, the warden is also going on his own manhunt. Like he doesn't care about the train at all. He just wants to get the two convicts off of the train and back into jail because he's like, I got to prove a point. They can't escape from my jail. And so what they do, they lower a helicopter ladder and like a guy tries to latch onto the train, but the guy instead gets flung forward and flies face first into like the window of the train and just dies instantly.
Yeah, right. Like it's like a really cool way to subvert your expectations. Like that plot line's just done for now. It's cool. It's really neat. And then John Voight gets his really great speech where he's like breaking the window and he's just yelling. He's like, "Come get me, get me!" That's it. That's his Oscar moment, or I should say his Golden Globe moment.
Yeah. And good thing Golden Globes are so highly regarded now. But,
oh yeah, people love them.
But he's got a lot of really great moments in there. Like he goes on like this really long, like Eric Roberts' character is just talking about like, oh yeah, I got this great operation. I'm going to go down there. You know,
Mhm.
we could run that, make a ton of money. And then John Voight's character kind of sets him, like gives him a reality check where he's like, it's like, you're not going to do any of that. You're going to find a job that a convict can do. You're going to do that. You're going to live your little pathetic life. And then you're going to die in old age that nobody cares about. And then
Mhm.
the guy, and Eric Roberts is like, I'm not doing that. I'd rather go back to jail. And he said, what about you? Are you going to do that? And John Voight's like, I wish I could.
Yeah. Isn't that sad? He kind of knows he's unhinged and like doesn't really have like there's nothing he can do. He's just kind of a maniac in a way. There's that moment where he locks Eric Roberts because Eric Roberts gets sent on like almost like a fool's errand in a way where like he's gonna die no matter what or get hurt. And John Voight locks him out. He closes the door of the train and won't
It,
let him in. It's like, dang, it's
it's his
awful.
most it's his most sadistic moment because Eric Roberts is trying to because the problem is like they're going like 80 miles per hour on a train and they're trying to have to jump across to like the lead engine so that way they could shut it down.
Hmm.
And so Eric Roberts like, yeah, I can do it. And then he tries to jump, but he can't. He's like, it's the wind's too powerful. And then
Hmm.
he's able to get back inside. And then like John Voight just like beats the crap out of him, just like kicking
Yeah,
him while he's down, just like he's like, get back out there. And like he's like, and then Eric Roberts is just so defeated. He's like, I'll go back. I'll
yeah.
go back.
Yeah, well, a character we didn't talk about, Sarah, who's just some lady that fell asleep on or was taking a nap on the train. She shows up and she becomes very sympathetic, especially towards Eric Roberts. And she's in there like, "Why are you doing that? He's just sending you out there to be killed." Blah, Um, I think it was interesting to throw in this character halfway through the movie, but I think it works. I think it makes it work.
Yeah, she's good.
Hmm.
There's a So like when they first meet her, well, at first you learn because they're Eric Roberts and John Voight are kind of talking and John Voight accuses Eric Roberts' character of being a rapist and
Hmm.
like that's why he went to prison. He's like, I ain't no rapo and
Yeah.
uh and he's like, oh, I saw on your rap sheet. And then Eric Roberts is like, oh well, that was only statutory. She was 15. No, and then like John Voight is like, yeah, that makes it so much better.
Yeah.
And and then immediately when this woman shows up, he immediately like, it's like, hey, you wanna have sex, like
Yeah. It reminds me of Body Heat, the famous
eh,
line from Body Heat.
yeah. So she's immediately like, get away from me. So like he's immediately got one thing on his mind, but then at the end of the movie, when they're like almost coming to terms that this train's probably going to crash,
Hmm.
then they start kind of embracing, like they're kind of waiting for the crash to happen.
Yeah. She's like, I don't want to die alone. Can you
Yeah.
hold me kind of deal?
It doesn't justify his actions, but it's more so kind of like when you're in like your final moments, it's just you don't really know. Like people get really scared and they want that last level of comfort before they think they're about to die. So
Yeah.
it doesn't.
No,
It,
exactly.
yeah, so it's not justifying his behavior. It's just kind of like hey, when you're in the throes of death, you're just willing to cling on to anything.
Exactly. That's how desperate the situation was. I guess someone that's been on our show a lot, we've talked about recently a lot. Dennis Franz is in this. He's in an uncredited role. I tried to find him. I could not find
What?
him. Yeah,
Wait, what?
he plays a cop in this. That's just, he's
Oh, of
cop.
course.
Yeah, yeah, and he's hidden somewhere in here. It's also Danny Trejo's first role. He plays a boxer, um, which is cool.
Apparently he just showed up on set. Everyone said like because he was going on set and apparently he was like somebody's like uh sponsor for like out for a rehab or whatever
Yeah.
and they saw like he had boxing experience or something and they just like, hey, you want to be in the movie? And they gave him like $300 to be like in the movie and I think and that's what kind of gave him his acting bug.
Oh, that's awesome. And look at him now. Uh,
Yeah,
Mr. Machete.
that's
Uh,
right.
mhm.
There are some negatives of this movie, though. There are some things that I think is not great.
Okay.
Um, so,
Let me hear him because this is a perfect movie. I'm just kidding.
okay. All right then. Well then, some really bad ADR, like really,
Oh yeah,
really obvious. Like they're not
yeah.
like they're just like they're outside talking. Like they're not on the train. This is like they're like outside, and it's just like the ADR is so bad. Like it's almost like a dubbed movie almost.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. There were times where you could really tell that it was limited by its budget. Some like it had a good budget as far as the trains go and sets go, but there were other times where you could tell like, oh, they weren't really like pumping enough into this, even though $9 million is quite a bit for Canon. So
That's a lot for a camera. This is like a big budget movie for Canon. And
yeah.
some another thing I was not really a fan of, and it's like towards the end of the movie, they go for like a super 80s type of like techno kind of score, and I think I would have
Yeah.
liked like a more traditional type of score because
Yeah.
to me like stuff like that really kind of dates the movie a lot.
Yeah, I was going to mention that too. I don't really like the music in this either. I can imagine it with like a symphonic, like maybe not John Williams, but somewhere in that, area of just a score. And I think I totally agree it'd be much better.
It's for me, unless this is like a real like heavy like cityscape type of movie, like techno would make sense in that instance, but
Hmm.
out in the middle of nowhere in this frozen wasteland, I don't really think techno is the way to go.
Totally agree. It should be something sweeping, something big, because I mean, that's just a really nice look. It's like snow and trees and everything, but it needs something that fits that. I don't know.
Um, One stupid line in the movie I thought was it's the scene where Eric Roberts is going out to walk and try to jump to the next car, and Manny, John Voight's character, is like, there he is, all guts, no brains. And then Sarah's character like looks over at her and she says, that's mean.
No, this movie has some weird lines though. Like I like the whole elevator scene where he's talking to like the security guard and he's like
Oh
selling him his
yeah.
shoes and like giving him like porno mags, and he's just like, it's just really awkward. And I don't think they really meant for it to be that awkward, because Eric
Oh
Roberts is
yeah.
like, all right, I'll see you later, fist bumps him. It's just really awkward.
Oh yeah. And that's Tony, aka Tiny Lister. He was Debo in the Friday movies,
Oh,
and he was also
really?
yeah,
Oh, okay. That's right.
and he was also in Dark Knight too. He was like the prisoner that didn't want to push the explosive button.
Well, I hope him and Eric Roberts reconnected, but Eric Roberts meets 500 people a year, so he might not have remembered.
Well, he's dead too, but
Oh, that's true. That's true.
um, yeah, he's been in a bunch of movies. But anyway,
Hmm.
yeah, just little stuff like that. Another thing too, which I thought was really awkward, was the way some of these, like the way the outdoor scenes, like when they're walking across the train, it's like it's done like where it almost looks like it's stop motion movement, and like
Yeah.
the shutter speed is really fast. And
Yeah. Yeah. No, I totally no. There's like some weird moments, or like the parts where the camera is off the train, but you see them on the train. It almost looks like I don't know, like just like statues just standing there, but it's like really noticeable. Yeah, stuff like that. It's almost like they didn't know how to film those outdoor sections right.
I didn't like it at all. Like the movement looks very unnatural.
Hmm.
But I will say when they're in the inner car, because they wanted to go for like a documentary sort of look. I really like the cinematography, like the real like close quarters, claustrophobic type of shots. I thought were
Yeah.
great in that.
Yeah, and that set gets more and more destroyed as the movie goes on, because that train hits another train at some point, the glass breaks, and it gets more and more chaotic. Yeah, and the prison set's pretty good. Like it can't go
Yeah,
wrong with that. No, I think what I found negative about this didn't really ruin my appreciation for it anyway, at least.
it no, it didn't. I
Mhm.
want to say that too. That it didn't ruin my um it didn't ruin my time with the movie. I just stuff that was like noticeable, like stuff I was just like, oh, I should have fixed that. But
Yeah. But, it is canon. I'm sure they were like, we need to get this out now. Well,
Perfect.
It looks like,
Print it.
yeah, it looks like it got released in December of 1985. So they were probably ready for that to be out for Oscar season.
Yeah. But like I said, I do think this is kind of one of those forgotten classic type of movies. I think a lot of times, I think this should be up there as like some of like the best 80s action movies.
I agree. I had never really heard about this movie until I watched that Canon documentary. It's been on my radar ever since because it just looked really neat. And yeah, I think more people should go see this. If you enjoy most of the movies we talk about on this show, I think you'll really like Runaway Train.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, I think that wraps it up for Runaway Train, right?
Yeah, I think so.
All right, cool. Well then, Ryan, what are we going to be covering on Thursday?
Well, I couldn't wait until Godzilla week, so I wanted to talk about a monster again. So we're going to be talking about Q the Winged Serpent, and that is streaming on Tubi, Pluto, YouTube, I believe, and Criterion Channel. It's not hard to find at all.
No, you can find it anywhere. Well, I'm excited to watch that. But if you have any recommendations or you enjoyed Runaway Train or anything, please send us an email over at driveindoublefeaturpodcast@gmail.com. Also, you can follow us on Twitter at DIDFpod. We'd love to hear from you. But until next time.
Until next time.